Take 10. Actually, take 5. It's take 5. Welcome to my podcast about grief. I'm just going to keep it real. Look, it's going to be messy as I'm probably going to cry, probably going to laugh, probably going to make some really dark humor jokes. But what you see is what you get with me. And this is how we're going to do this messy podcast. Because grief is messy. You know, one day I'm like on the top of the world. I'm living my life. I'm like, I'm married to the greatest man in the world. And then the next day I could be completely broken. I could be thinking about all the times I've missed out with my parents, the times I've missed out with my sister, the times I've missed out with people that I love, the times I've missed out with my best friend. All of those things come crashing down in a split second. And then the day after that, I could be baking bread, making scones, opening up another business. Like I didn't just have my world crash down yesterday. But that is grief. That is grief. If you're not ready to deep dive into your grief, stop listening to my podcast, because I need to be honest with this. Because if I'm not, then why am I here? Why am I talking to you? Why am I trying to share my grief journey if I'm not honest about it, right? I think that was a perfect introduction. I'm really proud of myself. But here we go. So, last week, I asked everyone to ask me some questions on Instagram so I can share it and I can talk about it so we can all have a merry old time and see how I answer it. I have picked a few questions. I wanted to answer all of them, but I also feel like a lot of them are quite similar to one another. So we'll ask them and then we'll go from there and then see how our moods change, or see if I break down. Okay. Anyways, so the first one that I wanted to answer was, I have been grieving recently and I've returned back to work, but I feel like it's too soon. But if I feel like I say something to my boss at work, they will be judgy. How soon is too soon to return back to work? First answer is, no job is worth you going back to when you're not ready to. If you do not want to be there, don't go. If you're not ready, don't go. And I know people are going to say, oh yeah, but I need to pay my bills and stuff. And I'm like, but how can you if you're not going to do your work to its full potential, and you're going to get yourself in trouble anyway because you're still grieving? Jobs will come and go. You can find another job. But right now, in this moment, in this space, I would just leave it. I'd just leave the job, go home, go to your safe space and grieve till you're ready to give it your all. Because right now, you're not going to give it your all. And the sad thing is you'll eventually get fired if you're not doing your job properly. Because, jobs, they don't care about you. They don't. That's the reality. They don't. If you're not doing your job and performing, they don't care if your mom died, your dad died, your family member died, or someone you love died. They will replace you. And that's the answer to that question. Leave that job. Leave it. Next question. Can grief become unhealthy or dangerous? It can, if you don't talk about it. It can definitely be unhealthy and dangerous for you as an individual. And how you cope with it can be dangerous for others if you don't know how to either. So This is why when you go through things, you need to talk about it. Because if you don't, it stays inside you and it grows. And I can honestly put my hand on my heart and tell you now that my grief nearly ended my life in 2016. I didn't talk about it. I suffered in silence. It got too much and I didn't want to be here anymore. It was time for me to go because I couldn't handle it. I couldn't see past that pain at the time. And I honestly believe that if you don't talk about it or share it or say something or pray, whatever your belief is, I got down on my knees and I said to God, I am so tired. I don't want to deal with this anymore. I'm not going to. 2016, I made the decision that this was it. It was time to go. But because I talked to God, He sent my sister. And my sister stayed with me, even though she had no idea what was going on. God did, though. So she was there. And she stayed with me, didn't say anything, but it changed my heart. And it can definitely get dangerous. So talk about it. Share it. Do what I do. Go on camera and start talking out loud about it. Get it out of your system. Has your grief impacted your understanding of love and connection? At first, yes. I didn't want to love anyone anymore. I didn't want to give love because I might lose it. I didn't want to connect with people because I may not see them again after a while. I was so scared of even like being in love with Junior because, what if he died? Like, oh my gosh, I couldn't, and it really did affect that because it was too painful to love something, knowing that one day they may not be around. So it did impact it for a while. But then I thought to myself, I deserve love. Yes, I lost my parents and my sister, but how do I experience great joy without letting it in? How do I experience great love without allowing it into my life again? And yes, it is difficult. It's very, very difficult because at first I just didn't want any relationships. I didn't want to start anything new because I was frozen. Frozen is not the right word. There's a word. Oh my gosh, I really need oh my gosh, that noise outside's pissing me off. I couldn't allow love in because I was so frozen in fear of allowing it in and then possibly losing it again. How can grief affect your marriage and relationship? How can it affect it? It affects the whole thing. If you're not dealing with your grief and you're not open and honest to your significant other about your challenges going through losing a parent, a loved one, or a friend, they don't know that what they do may trigger that. You have to be honest from the start. You have to tell them from the start what you're dealing with, how big it is, how much this person meant to you. And so they can kind of figure out, if this person is not feeling happy today, it's because of that. Give them the dates, give them everything that triggers you. You have to tell the person you're marrying or the person not even, don't tell them when you get married. Tell them from the very beginning. You know, I'm fortunate because I put it in a blog and Junior found it. And he read everything about my journey with grief and just everything, all the challenges that I went through. So I didn't really have to tell him when our relationship started. But if you're meeting someone and you know you want to take it to another level, be honest with them from the start. Say, hey, look, a couple of years ago, I lost someone that I really love. And it's been hard. You know, the anniversary comes up. I'm triggered by it. I'm always thinking about them. And just pour your heart out to this person. Because if you see you're going to be with them long term, at least they know that you've gone through something very traumatic and something that will affect you guys moving forward as a couple. So, yeah, my advice is to always be honest from the start. And if they walk away because it's too much, you know what? You can't change how you feel, but you can find another man or woman. I'm trying not to make this funny, but it's just my personality, guys. And I'm probably going to cry for the next few questions and laugh. But you know what? What you see is what you get. All right, let's go to the next question. How do you continue to keep your dad and mom's legacy alive? I talk about them out loud. I do everything I do, they're the reason why I do it. I tell people about them. You know, my dad was a musician. A lot of people don't know that. He was a musician. He was a songwriter. He played every single instrument you could think about. He sang. And that's where I think my siblings get it from, the love for music. It's always been in our house. You know, my dad had a full-on band in our house at one point in life. I just try to be like them. I try and be the best person that I can be because I represent them. So, you know, how I keep their legacy alive is always just making sure that no one ever forgets them, that they're always spoken about. You know, everyone that follows me on Instagram, follows me on social media, they know who my parents are. And I will keep telling people who they are and who they were and share everything about them as long as I live. And try and be the best person that I can be so they're proud of me. So they see that I never gave up. Even when everything was stacked against me, I didn't give up. So that's how I keep their legacy alive, is just be the best daughter that they can be proud of. And they would be proud of. Next question. My biggest grief is imagining the day I get married without my dad by my side. How did you do it? To be honest, I had no choice. When you have no choice, you just have to, you just do what you can. I didn't know how I was going to do it, to be honest, but I chose to have all my brothers walk me down the aisle and then get the youngest to give me away. That changed on the day. My sister ended up giving me away to Junior. And it was really difficult because I know how much he sacrificed in his life for us to get to where we are now. So, you know, I had a big cry, and then I think I had all the attitudes on the day. Like, I was happy, then I was mad because he wasn't there, and then I was just extremely broken at one point of my day because I'm having the time of my life with the people that I love, and I'm not with, my parents aren't here to see that. You know, they're not here to celebrate something with me. And, for my dad to benefit from everything everything up to this point, because he's the one that made the sacrifice. He should have been the one at the main table. He should have been the one dancing. He should have been there. And it was difficult. But I think the fact that I had my siblings there and my new husband, it just made things easier, because the people I shared the pain with were there. And yeah, to this day, it's still hard, even though, he wasn't there to walk me down the aisle, but it's still really difficult to think about it. And I think praying also helped me. I just prayed, God, get me through today. It's the happiest day of my life. I want to be happy. I want to show that I'm happy. Even though everyone knows I'm sad. I think everyone was more sad for me than I was for myself. And so they carried that burden for me. So I was able to showcase my happiness on the day. You'll get through it. I promise you, you will. It's not going to be the same. It's not going to be easier. But, I had a photo of my dad. I had his handkerchief in my pocket. So I had a piece of him with me on my day. And I still have his handkerchief to this day. And I'm about to get his jacket from my siblings, which is I'm really grateful for. But, yeah, have a piece of them with you when you walk down the aisle. That's what I did. I'm sending a lot of love out to that person that sent me that question, because I know when they get to that time, it's going to be really difficult. But, I pray that you'll be comforted on the day and that you'll get through it. Oh my gosh, I'm getting emotional now. How do you feel when milestones come for loved ones that have passed, or for you? Milestones are the hardest part. When I got married, their birthdays, the anniversaries of when they passed away, big milestones for my siblings. It was rough. It's still rough to this day. And I share it openly on my social media. The week of, or the days leading up to it, my body feels it before my heart does. My mind knows it before my heart does. Because I think my heart just ignores that it's coming. But everything else knows it's coming. To this day, I still struggle with milestones, because I struggle with it because you want to share that with them. You wanted them to be here for it. And I think the saddest bit is, I know they wanted to be here for it too. I think that's the bit that gets me the most, is I know if my dad had a choice, he'd be here. He would be here through everything. Even my mom's, if they had a choice, they would be here. I just allow myself to be in the moment, whether it's a happy reaction or a sad reaction. I don't know. I don't know how I'm going to feel until it's leading up to the day. And my birth mom just had her 31st anniversary since she passed. And I didn't think about it. I didn't really, this year it kind of just went over my head. But then a couple of days later, I started crying about it. Because it's been 31 years since she's been gone. That's pretty much more than half of my life. That's most of my life. She's been gone longer than she's been in my life. And yeah, I struggle with it. I still struggle with it now. Even though I'm healing and I'm going through all the motions of dealing with my grief, it still hurts. And you have to allow yourself to still feel that pain, because all that means is that they were here, that they existed with us. How do you get through grief without ignoring your siblings' experience when it doesn't align with yours? Oh, that was a really good question. I feel like I only dealt with my siblings' grief when my dad died. When my parents passed away, I only cared about their grief. I only cared about how they felt and what they were going through, and I fully ignored mine. The only problem with that is 2016, it all came to a halt. And it was too much for me, and I felt like everything just blew up at once. I understand now that everyone, even my own siblings, we all deal with grief very, very differently. They don't really want to talk about it. I do. I always want to talk about it. They don't share as much as I share on social media, and that's okay. Like, that's just how they deal with it. My siblings, I protected them as long as I could and took care of them as long as I could and as long as they would allow me to. And then when they said, oh, we don't want to, leave us alone, blah, blah, blah. Not then say that, but I mean, once I knew I had to kind of take a step back and deal with my own grief, I had to allow them and respect them as adults to deal with their grief when they were ready. Because you can't rush anybody to deal with it. Some people will never accept grief for a really long time, because you're still hoping your loved one is going to walk through that door, or you're still hoping that you're going to wake up and this bad dream's gone or finished, and you're longing for that person to be back. And some people will never accept it. Some people will live their lives and never accept that that person that they love is gone. Some people will never deal with it. Some people will never talk about it. So me, when I got to a point where my siblings just had enough, like they had enough of me talking out loud about it, I had to respect them as adults to let them deal with it. Let them deal with their grief in their time. And that's what you have to do. You just have to leave people alone and let people deal with their grief their way. But when you know it's a way that is dangerous to them, step in. You do have to step in. But don't try and tell them how to deal with it. Just be present. Be present with them. Hold their hand. Because in 2016, when I was going to take my life, my sister was there. And she didn't say anything. She just sat with me. She sat with me in my darkness and just waited. And hoping that I don't react. And that's what you have to do. You have to let people deal with their grief on their own, in their own time. I'm doing really well for someone that thought I was going to cry through this whole thing. I'm actually not crying. I guess it'll be different if I have a guest. I'll probably cry with them or cry before them. But yeah, right now I'm not crying. I don't feel sad. I feel like I picked the perfect day to start recording, because I'm not in my sadness today.